Welcome to our in-depth study of one of the most mysterious and intriguing encounters narrated in the Bible, the dialogue between Satan and God in the book of Job, chapter 1. Have you ever wondered exactly where this confrontation took place? Was it in heaven, on earth, or in some unknown spiritual dimension? Today, we will explore various theories and provide clarifications based on solid biblical interpretation. Understanding where and how this encounter occurred not only enriches our knowledge of the Scriptures but also offers valuable insights into the sovereignty of God and the reality of the spiritual world, which often seems so distant from our daily reality. If you have ever felt in a spiritual battle or had doubts about the presence and authority of God, this video will bring a new perspective that can strengthen your faith and provide comfort in daily struggles. Prepare to dive into a detailed analysis that not only answers these intriguing questions, but also connects the events of Job with eternal truths about the character and power of God. Stay with us, explore the depths of God's Word with us, and discover how these truths can transform your understanding and your life. Don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. We begin our journey with a direct reading from Job 1:6-7, which states, "On the day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, 'Where do you come from?' Satan answered the Lord, 'From roaming through the earth and walking around on it.'" This verse is crucial because it sets the stage for one of the most significant and profound dialogues in the Bible. Here, we see the sons of God presenting themselves before the Lord, and notably, Satan appears among them. This moment raises several important theological questions. Who exactly are these sons of God? And more intriguingly, how is Satan, a banished and fallen being, present in this celestial assembly? The significance of this verse lies in how it illuminates the nature of the relationship between God and spiritual creatures, including angels and other celestial beings, as well as Satan. By investigating where this encounter occurred, we gain insights into the organization and dynamics of the spiritual world described in the Bible. This is not just a historical or literary account. It is an event that helps us understand the constant interaction between the physical and spiritual, God's authority over the entire universe, and the role that Satan plays in the story of human salvation and temptation. Satan's presence in this celestial assembly, as described in Job 1:6-7, challenges us to think about the permissions and limits that God places on the forces of evil. This verse serves as a bridge to broader discussions on systematic theology, eschatology, and divine sovereignty. By understanding this encounter, we can begin to see how the Bible consistently portrays God as supreme, just, and eternally in control, even allowing the presence of adversaries in His court for purposes that serve His greater and inscrutable plan. Satan's fall is generally regarded as the moment when he, originally a high-ranking angel, who walked among the fiery stones of God's throne, Ezekiel 28:14, rebelled against God. This is mentioned in passages like Isaiah 14:12-15 and Ezekiel 28:12-17, where many theologians believe these passages apply to Satan's situation. The fall occurs because Satan desired to elevate his throne above the stars of God and be like the Most High. As a result, he was expelled from his original celestial authority place and cast down to earth, symbolically representing his loss of position and power in the heavenly realm. The expulsion, on the other hand, is a distinct event specifically mentioned in the book of Revelation, Revelation 12:7-9. Here, the narrative describes a war in heaven where Michael and his angels fight against the dragon, who is identified as the devil or Satan. Satan and his angels are defeated and expelled from heaven, completely losing any access they had to the heavenly realm. This expulsion is permanent and symbolizes not just a physical defeat, but also a spiritual and theological defeat, marking the end of any role Satan might have had in heaven. This becomes very clear when the Lord Jesus Himself witnessed this event and stated in Luke 10:18, He said to them, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." In heaven, Satan was not a serpent. He only receives the name Ancient Serpent after he was expelled from heaven and after having taken the form of the serpent to deceive Eve. In Revelation 12, Satan loses the right to enter heaven after the birth of the child. Before his definitive expulsion as described in Revelation, there are indications in the scriptures that Satan still had the ability to access heaven. For example, in Job 1:6-7, Satan appears before God with the sons of God to present himself. This access suggests that, despite his fall, Satan maintained the ability to enter heaven to fulfill certain divine purposes, such as accusing humans before God, as he does with Job. However, after his expulsion as narrated in Revelation, this access is completely cut off, restricting his operations to the earthly and lower spiritual domain. This distinction between the fall and expulsion of Satan is crucial for understanding not only the chronology of the spiritual events described in the Bible, but also the nature of Satan's power and authority throughout biblical and eschatological times. The fall deals with his original rebellion and loss of position, while the expulsion highlights his final defeat and total banishment from heaven, an event that has profound implications for the end times and the consummation of God's redemptive plan through Jesus. The exact location of the encounter between Satan and God, as described in the book of Job, has been the subject of various theological interpretations. The main theories suggest that this encounter could have occurred in heaven, on earth, or even in an unspecified spiritual dimension. Each of these interpretations seeks grounding in different aspects of biblical texts and theological traditions. 1. In heaven. Some theologians argue that the encounter took place in heaven, based on the idea that the sons of God, presenting themselves before the Lord, indicates a typical celestial gathering of divine and spiritual beings. The scriptures affirm in Psalms 115:16 that, "The heavens are the heavens of the Lord, but the earth he has given to the children of men," an example among many verses that affirm God resides in heaven. Satan's presence among them suggests that he, despite his fall, still had permission to enter heaven, fulfilling a role of accuser, as seen in other parts of the Bible. 2. On earth. Another theory suggests that the encounter could have taken place on earth, based on the idea that Satan, after his fall, was restricted to the earth and its vicinity. In this interpretation, God would descend to earth to conduct divine encounters, a view that aligns with other biblical narratives where God appears on earth to dialogue with humans in the Old Testament. 3. In another dimension, some scholars propose that the encounter took place in a separate spiritual dimension, neither strictly in heaven nor on earth. This view is less traditional, but seeks to accommodate the spiritual nature of God and Satan, suggesting that they exist and interact on a plane that is not completely accessible or comprehensible to humans. The most straightforward and simple interpretation of the scriptures, particularly of Job 1:6-7, indicates that the encounter occurred in heaven. The text explicitly mentions that the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, phraseology that often refers to celestial beings appearing before God in a heavenly context. Moreover, God's question to Satan, "Where do you come from?" and Satan's response, "From roaming through the earth and walking around on it," imply that this encounter took place in a location where Satan did not reside, reinforcing the idea that he came from another place, presumably from the earth to heaven. It is interesting to note that the expression "came also" is in the sense of irony. You know when someone shows up at your birthday uninvited? Everyone came, and also that person you did not wish to be there. The translation became, "And Satan also came," in the sense of irony. He went where he should not have gone. The expression, "Where do you come from?" is in the sense of, "What are you doing here?" This is a rhetorical question, where God already knew the answer. Also, notice the expression, "walking around on it." The expression "walking around on it" on the earth is in the sense of a tyrant, monarch, governor, or someone who dominates walking in their kingdom, where no one opposes their authority. When Satan said, "I was walking on the earth," it was in this sense, I was in a place where I am the authority, as the world lies under the evil one. See 1 John 5:19. Take, for example, this expression, "God walked in his garden," when he asked where Adam was after the sin, and the second example is of King David, who also walked in his palace when he saw Bathsheba. This clarifies this question. The place where Satan met God was indeed in heaven. Morally speaking, Satan had no right to enter heaven, but by right, he does. When humanity sinned, Adam and Eve, they opened legality for the enemy to return to heaven, but only with God's authorization. Generally, Satan goes to heaven always with the purpose of tempting God, even though the scriptures affirm that God cannot be tempted by anyone, and tempting man, James 1:13. This understanding is supported by other biblical passages that describe similar interactions in the celestial realm, such as in the book of Zechariah, where Satan also appears before God to accuse Joshua, the high priest, suggesting continuity in how these encounters are depicted across different biblical texts. Thus, the simplest and most straightforward interpretation of the text in Job suggests that the encounter between God and Satan took place in heaven, consistent with the Judeo-Christian tradition that heaven is the stage for divine matters and judgments. This view not only aligns with the broader biblical context, but also reinforces the understanding of divine sovereignty and Satan's limited but temporarily permitted access to heaven to fulfill the divine purpose of testing and accusation until he is finally expelled and banned from heaven, as revealed in Revelation. The dialogue between God and Satan in the book of Job is rich with meaning and offers a deep insight into the complex relationship between these two figures and their spiritual and moral implications. This encounter is not just a moment of confrontation, but also a reflection of the celestial dynamics that directly influence the earthly realm. In the dialogue, God asks Satan, "Where do you come from?" Satan's response, "From roaming through the earth and walking around on it," reveals several important aspects. Firstly, it shows that Satan has the freedom to roam the earth, suggesting he observes and possibly interferes in human activities. God's question, although seemingly simple, is profoundly significant as it indicates that God is fully aware of Satan's actions, but chooses to engage him in dialogue, instead of simply reprimanding or banishing him immediately. This dialogue reflects the permissive nature of God in allowing Satan to carry out his activities to a certain extent. This can be interpreted as part of the divine plan to allow human free will and faith to be tested under adverse conditions, representing a deep trust in the integrity and ability of human beings to choose good over evil, even in challenging circumstances. The dialogue between God and Satan highlights the absolute sovereignty of God. He is not only the supreme creator, but also the final judge who permits, controls, and limits the actions of beings like Satan. This interaction shows that nothing happens outside the knowledge and permission of God, reinforcing his omniscience and omnipotence. God's sovereignty here also manifests in how he uses Satan's actions to achieve greater purposes, such as the perfection of Job's faith, and by extension, the instruction of all who read his story. The encounter is also a vivid representation of the ongoing spiritual warfare between celestial and earthly forces. By allowing Satan to roam the earth, God is highlighting the reality of a spiritual battlefield where human souls are at stake. However, the continual presence of God and his active involvement, even in dialogues with the adversary, ensure that he never leaves his creations at the mercy of evil forces without supervision or purpose. This dialogue also underlines the importance of human free will and moral resilience. Job is subsequently tested in extremely challenging ways, a recurring theme reflecting the test of human faith in the face of adversity. This test is not merely an act of senseless suffering, but a demonstration and refinement of the quality of an individual's faith and integrity, as Job, despite his tribulations, continues to maintain his integrity and faith in God. Therefore, the dialogue between God and Satan in Job is not just a narrative event. It is an exploration of the dynamics between the divine and the diabolical, between freedom and fate, and between tested faith and rewarded faith. These conversations are fundamental to understanding how the sovereignty of God operates within the limits of spiritual warfare and human moral development, emphasizing that, in the end, God even uses the forces of evil to fulfill his divine and just purposes. The concept of a parallel spiritual realm is fundamental to the understanding of many biblical texts, including the Book of Job. This realm is not just a theological abstraction, but an active and dynamic reality that directly influences the physical world. The existence of this spiritual world helps contextualize the interactions between God, Satan, and humanity, showing that earthly events often have origins and implications that transcend the visible and the material. The Bible describes the spiritual world as a space where spiritual entities, both malevolent and divine, operate. This world is parallel to ours and constantly interacts with the physical, influencing decisions, events, and, as seen in Job, even human challenges and tribulations. Understanding this dimension is crucial to comprehending how spiritual actions can have concrete reflections in people's lives and in human history. For example, in the book of Daniel, we find one of the most explicit descriptions of spiritual warfare. Daniel prays for understanding, and his prayers are heard, but the response is delayed because the angel sent to respond to Daniel is hindered by a prince of the kingdom of Persia, which is interpreted as an evil spirit or fallen angel governing the spiritual realm of Persia. This conflict lasts 21 days until Archangel Michael intervenes to assist. This episode clearly illustrates how there are battles in the spiritual realm that have direct impacts on the physical world, even affecting the delivery of a divine message. In the book of Zechariah 3:1-2, we see another remarkable scene where Joshua, the high priest, is accused by Satan before the angel of the Lord. Here, Satan acts as an accuser, a role he assumes in various passages of the scriptures. The Lord rebukes Satan, a scene that not only shows divine intervention against evil accusations in the spiritual realm, but also reaffirms the purification and restoration of Joshua as the spiritual leader of the people. This passage highlights how spiritual battles can involve attempts to hinder the redemption and mission of God's servants. These examples demonstrate that the spiritual world is not merely a backdrop for the biblical narrative, but an active battlefield where spiritual forces struggle for influence over humanity and the fulfillment of divine plans. Understanding these dynamics is essential for a deeper and more comprehensive reading of the Bible, revealing that our daily struggles and spiritual challenges are interconnected in a vast tapestry of spiritual reality that shapes the course of history and human development. Remember what Paul says in Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Click on the pinned comment below to obtain the ebook, Revelation, History, Context, and Relevance for Today, and explore more about these intriguing topics, perhaps by reading more about them in the Bible or other reliable sources to deepen your understanding and your faith. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and share it with friends and family who might also be interested in these profound issues. Feel free to click on the card and watch the video about Abaddon Apollyon, the Angel of the Abyss, to deepen your knowledge about this supernatural and eschatological subject and its influence on the world. Don't forget to leave your comment below with your opinions or questions. We are very interested in hearing what you think. In this video, we've delved deep into one of the most fascinating biblical encounters, the dialogue between God and Satan as described in the book of Job, chapter 1. We discussed the location of this mysterious encounter, analyzing whether it occurred in heaven, on earth, or in a parallel spiritual dimension. We addressed the crucial difference between the fall and the expulsion of Satan, highlighting how these events shape our understanding of the spiritual realm and its interaction with the physical world. We examined the meaning of the dialogue between God and Satan, reflecting on the spiritual and moral implications these encounters have for the sovereignty of God and the nature of spiritual warfare. Additionally, we offered insights into how spiritual battles, as described in the books of Daniel and Zechariah, influence earthly events and human destiny. I invite you to explore more about these intriguing topics, perhaps by reading more about them in the Bible or other reliable sources to deepen your understanding and your faith. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and share it with friends and family who might also be interested in these profound issues. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now so you don't miss our future videos that continue to explore great biblical and spiritual themes. God bless.